Well, hello, and welcome to the Black Friday show, the day after Thanksgiving show. The whole tryptophan makes you tired thing's a myth, so don't start with me. But I hope you had a good time yesterday. I am recording this before even then, so in the past, as usual, but really in the past, because I sat down with Yates Sexton on Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and we had a great conversation, wide-ranging. Always great. I love Jared. You should get all of his books and subscribe to his Substack and listen to his podcast, the Muckrake podcast, and all the things, because Jared's a really interesting cat. I always enjoy our conversations. I always enjoy his perspective on things. We don't always agree on everything, but I don't really know how to argue necessarily. But I think we got to a bunch of different good points in this discussion. Always great. Always love it. Follow him on all the things. Look at the show notes for more connections to Jared. And, of course, support him. Support me here on patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Let's do it right now. Author, political commentator, former writing professor, and all-around good guy, my friend Jared Yates Sexton. Just before we hit record, Jared was talking about how much admiration he had for Larry Summers. I was surprised.
Stand-up guy, the work he's done in economics, a relationship guru, no problem with that guy's ethics or morality.
There was a huge controversy because he said something like women, when he's Harvard president, women aren't good at math or some shit. Something like that.
It turns out somebody who engineers the economy to hurt vulnerable people also has other problems.
I don't think he did it on purpose.
What, hung out with Epstein?
No,
I think he chose that. I think he made a conscious decision.
Epstein, how to basically hit on or manipulate a woman. He was a married man and an upstanding Harvard, I think, president at the time.
Yeah, turns out real piece of shit.
Do you think this Epstein guy was bad?
Here's the thing. I'm not one to cast aspersions, but I've got problems with this Epstein.
Oh, yeah?
He
was a guy who connected people. That was his big thing. He connected people with investments, with ideas, with...
if I die doing only one thing, it's in hopes that people will not uncover a tranche where everybody who has ever known me and been close to me is just like, hey, I like doing crimes with you. I like hurting people with you. That's literally all that he did. And that was it's wild seeing all of that and having that sort of rot uncovered.
Have you spent any time going through the emails and reading them or anything?
Yeah, I spent way too much time going through
them. You did? What did you write about it? Forgive me. I'm not caught up on your latest. I should be. I usually am very, very prepared, especially when I talk to you. But have you written anything about it? Have you talked about it?
I wrote about the larger thing, which is that I think what this has revealed is just the rot at the heart of everything. Literally, anybody who is engaging in political, economic, and cultural stuff that hurts people, they're being rewarded. That's the type of system where things are incentivized. So, looking through this, it's a chamber of horrors, is what it is, and it really makes you realize, man, the people in charge of everything are really terrible.
Well, that's too much of a sweeping generalization.
I disagree.
People who are in charge of everything. I heard that guy, Anand Girahada's, so many letters. You know what I'm talking about? The brown Indian guy writes for, I don't know how to say his name, and I don't always love his takes. He's very brilliant. He's very good at talking, a lot smarter than I am. But he said something similar to you, and it's if we believe that, then we believe that there's nobody anywhere in power that is doing good things and looking out for people, because I do think that there are in a lot of ways, but maybe I'm just too naive, or I haven't been through the ringer enough, or haven't seen the data. Make it more specific, because I think there's a lot of, who are we talking about? In the private sector, in the public sector?
Yeah, keep going. I mean, who else you got?
I mean, all the people in power have bad incentives and are doing bad things. Is that what I'm hearing? Or
I'll say this. One thing that I noticed, I'll make an example that moves away from the political realm, because we have a lot of sort of tribal instincts around politics. One thing that I noticed in my career in academia was that it was weird that the people who kept getting promoted up to the administrative level were the people who would fuck over everyone they knew, who would carry things out, and they would have a rationalization for it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, times are hard. We have to make hard decisions, things like that. I could not move up those ranks because I wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
now you're convincing me, because it's just as it was at every media company I worked for. So I worked for SiriusXM for 12 years. I really got to know the inner workings of that place, and also worked at CNN, also at Comedy Central. I worked at the Colbert Report for years. And so I feel like I've had
St. James Island, same story.
And where's
same story.
So the point is, it's very true of a lot of places you go, but it is still a generalization. Good people do get promoted and into places in a lot of ways. And there are, like I worked for Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert. I could criticize both of them, but I know both those guys are better guys than I am, I think, in a lot of ways. And I don't know that I could be, able to handle what they've gone through and still come out with what I hope is kind of good character. I mean, I could think of, the guy who owns a local hardware store or other places, but I guess I'm losing the thread.
Well, no, I think what you're bringing up is actually an important distinction. Like, I think you have to look at where we've arrived and how things actually work to realize that the vast majority of people who have control and sway, and I don't think it's all of them. One of the arguments I made in the Epstein article is it's capitalistic incentives. Like, you have to be able to make decisions and live with them that are going to hurt people. Like, we have a government right now that thinks it's okay that people can't afford health care, that they can't afford places to live. The shutdown didn't end when 40 million people didn't know where their next meal was coming from. It ended when the flight, the airline corporation started to put pressure on them because the bottom line was under attack. So I think the vast majority of the people that we're relying on are within this incentive structure, and the people who aren't like that have been minimized and sort of isolated. And
that's why we're alone.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right.
We will tell the boss, listen, I've had enough of your nonsense.
Well, there's a reason why you and I are self-employed.
Yeah, I think that's true. Well, I because it's not as if, I don't know if it's in your case, it's not as if I couldn't go work somewhere. I actually don't mind taking orders and working with people. It's that I don't want to anymore.
Well, yeah, but it is also, I mean, listen, I've known you for a few years now. You are not a person who's going to take orders like always.
No, I didn't. The whole way at Sirius, I think I did a pretty good job of pushing back the whole way through, maintaining my own character until it was over. And you're absolutely convincing me here, because the reason it was over is because the capitalistic incentives are always there to push out all different kinds of people for different reasons. Efficiencies, you're going to make more money by having this. There's so many different reasons, but all the incentives are there to end up making people's lives a lot harder, as opposed to any other kind of society or economic structure that would allow for all types of different protections. And we could do a lot between socialism, European-style socialism, and American, whatever, late-stage capitalism, like, pensions or something with insurance or education. There's so much that we could do, but it's just really so far gone.
It is. And I mean, that for me, just to pull back the curtain, because, man, we got off to a galloping start here. I'm just going to note that. This is a galloping start.
I don't know.
I think it is. When I stopped getting invitations to write for the New York Times was when I started critiquing capitalism. It was fine to critique Donald Trump or MAGA or to bring in sort of a perspective. But the moment that I started talking about the incentives behind things was when all of a sudden that stuff dried up. That's not to say it's always a conscious decision. You know what I mean? Like, I think the way that this works and worms its way through things is that, it's sometimes we're not going to go in this direction, we're not going to go in this direction. But we are in the latter stages of this thing where all of a sudden, like, a lot of these old explanations don't work anymore. They simply don't. It's the incentives that got us here. It's like, what is it? One of those old corporations, like, let's say Sears. Right? And you'd go into a Sears and you'd go in and you'd be like, what the hell happened to Sears? And you're like, whoa, I used to come in here and it was like a wonderland. What happened to Sears? And then all of a sudden articles start coming out and they're like, the management at Sears was bad. And you're like, yeah, the management at Sears has been bad for a long time. It just so happens that it arrives at the later stage in which you realize, like, the damage that it has wrought. And I think the same thing has been reflected through our politics and also our culture, for that matter.
Yeah, we just don't care enough about each other, and the incentives aren't there to care enough about each other. And incentives matter because we're a human species and we're self-interested, and you're gonna go where the food is.
And I think capitalism has also twisted things around, because that was the basis of it, was the idea that we are all selfish and wretched and we needed some sort of a system that rewarded that. When in fact, I think that was, and by the way, I want you to hold on to your chair, because we've been talking for a while. You've accused me of being cynical. You've accused me of being pessimistic. I actually think that the idea that we are all wretched and self-serving, I actually think that's a distortion of the fact that we are actually good. And that we could actually have a system with incentives that incentivizes good behavior.
Whatever,
he says.
I agree with you, I see elements of it in other nations around the world. I mean, it's not like a pipe dream. When you're talking about it, is not something that hasn't been tried or isn't currently being tried, not only in other nations and governments, but in state and local governments. I mean, like, there's a large spectrum of issues that we're talking about, but I do think there are a lot of good people in working as public servants, to be more specific of who the people are in power, that absolutely think a lot about public policy and that are advocating for working class folks. I think this new age of Democrats, AOC, Zoran Mamdani, and plenty of others are doing really important work, which is looking at how public policy and government should play a role in our lives that doesn't destroy them, but makes them at least a little bit better, if not a lot better and safer.
And I think the proof is that the Democratic Party embraced Zoran Mamdani with open arms, and all of them endorsed him very, very quickly and didn't accuse him of everything under the sun. I will say, on the note of what you're...
And then vote against socialism in the House. There was
and by the way, we don't even have to talk about socialism. Even capitalism in its actual idealistic, I'm putting big scare quotes around this thing. To give you another example of a corporation, people are like, why doesn't anybody go to McDonald's anymore? Like, why don't people go to McDonald's? Why are they suffering?
They don't?
Well, they do, but like not in the way people, like the corporation wants them to.
There's always a line when my friend goes. My friend always goes, and he said to me, he says, there's always a line.
By the way, the old Yogi Berra quote, nobody goes there anymore, it's too busy, which is my favorite. But no, think about this. When's the last time, okay, quick aside. When's the last time Pete Dominic went into a McDonald's?
Went into one? Not too long ago. You know, you go into them when I'm on the road a lot, driving.
Is that your okay?
Versus a drive-through? Yeah, I've gone in more times than I would like to admit. What's the question? You want to know?
How did it feel?
There's a touch screen now, and then there's usually an undocumented person behind the counter.
Was it like in the 1980s where people are having their birthday parties, families are hanging out?
No, it doesn't have that. It's a little bit more anodyne. It's like an Apple store.
So the problem at this point, the reason, and I'm bringing it around to this capitalistic point, the reason why people don't like going into McDonald's anymore is because the corporation has stopped spending money on the people who are working there. They don't want to create an environment that feels good. The energy becomes very bad. If you don't actually put money into something in order to make it work, and you have a vulture type predatory system, which is what we have at this point, it's evolved to that point. Eventually, at some point, people don't want anything to do with it. So even under a capitalist system, let's say a town, let's say social services, hell, Pete, let's talk about administrations that are supposed to take care of vaccines or looking at the weather, any of these things. Those are things that are necessary to keep a healthy system moving forward. So we're not even talking about sort of a balanced capitalism at this point. And you and I could have an argument about where we need to go back to in terms of things working, but we know that they don't work now. That's the problem. They obviously do not work. We have reached the point where it's basically stealing the copper wiring out of the walls.
By the way, I hate in the chat that a lot of people are saying, Jared, Pete is not allowed near a McDonald's playland. I don't think those jokes are funny at all. Remember those, though? There's a playground at the McDonald's.
I had a great time in them. That's what I'm saying. Like, something that used to feel good has been turned into like a soulless, destructive, depressing experience.
Well, that's what other restaurants, that's what Chili's is for. Or TGIF. You ever go there? They get the...
TGIF doesn't exist anymore, basically for the exact same reason.
Ruby Tuesdays, which is the one where you get to express yourself through your
all of them. They all started to feel the same.
That's one of them. Let me ask you about the the Democratic rebrand first. And, we haven't talked a bit since Zohran Mamdani's election, since he charmed the snake last Friday. And now all those Democrats that were running from him have to look at him and be like, oh my God, maybe we should definitely be running towards him. More importantly, everybody's made this point already, but when Mamdani went to the White House and the commander in chief was kissing his ass, it took away the argument that he's a jihadist and that socialism is. Trump's like, I would love to live in New York with this guy. Like he was. So what does it all mean? What does all that mean for where the Democratic Party is? Not only that, the midterm elections. Where are we? Because I think Democrats are in a really good position right now as a result of a lot of this.
I completely disagree. I completely and utterly disagree. And I'll start with the Mamdani Trump thing.
About like for election though, what Democrats are in a good place to win back the House. I think that's what I'm saying. Democrats,
I don't trust that there's going to be a free and fair election for the.
Fair enough. I think that's fair.
But I will also say with the Mamdani thing, everyone keeps asking me like, what happened in that room?
Yeah.
And I think first things first that Donald Trump is around some of the most miserable sons of bitches in existence. Like if you had to look at Stephen Miller for 58 minutes out of every hour when you're not golfing, you would also be like, oh my God, a real person. Like a person who will speak to me like a human being. And I think we actually saw a moment of joy with Trump in that regard, which is a really weird thing. And you see him every now and then, which basically it gives me a little bit of karmic hope that even the most lost human being has moments of like humanity, even though it's like.
You think that's an interesting perspective, but don't you think it's more specifically that not only is he's surrounded by vampires who are just sucking at his teeth, but we know this guy, he loves celebrities. Mamdani is the hottest thing in politics. And that's why he was looking at him like that. That's why you like to be around him, because he's a big deal and he's had a lot of success and he's hot. Anybody who's hot, he wants to get near him.
And we forgot for a long time because we lose all context. Like he used to be like this with AOC. Like when AOC first came on the map, he was like, this is a talented person. Because deep down, he doesn't want to be president of the United States of America. He wants to produce movies. I mean, he just brought back Rush Hour. Right. Which is actually the signature accomplishment of his second administration.
Really weird thing to do.
Well, it is, except for when you start realizing, people are like, why is he blasting Phantom of the Opera from the White House? And it's like, that's who he is.
Yeah, he's a real.
This is something he felt compelled to do in order to fill up something inside of himself. Like if Donald Trump could have just become a producer, that's what he would be doing.
Isn't there some movie that I'm sure you could reference that has a real huge cult following that its fans would be desperate for a sequel, that if a president actually did that, it would make people really be like, oh my God, he got Reservoir Dogs 2 done. And meanwhile, he's doing Rush Hour 4. It's for nobody but him.
It's really incredible.
Use your power. He could be a populist in this way.
It's really incredible stuff, because a lot of what Trump has actually done is that he fell in with a group, and we all know this, like his history is that he was with the political winds wherever they went, and then he found the group that absolutely worships him and is part of. And by the way, he hates them. He literally despises everyone who loves him because he is a malignant narcissist. And I think when you look at this, you're exactly right. I think that Mamdani came across the sky like a comet for a few reasons. One, he is talented. Two, he's authentic. And three, he's one of the few people in this country who's actually giving a voice to what people want, which is they want a leftist reaction to what is happening in this country. They want to deal with the elites, all of that. When you bring up the Democrats sort of like warming to him, let's have another conversation when he becomes mayor of New York and starts doing things. Because they're not going to like the way that he runs New York City.
Really?
And no, I don't think so, because they do not want to redistribute wealth. They do not want to have programs that if they started doing that, Pete, they would have to do it all the time. They would have to actually make things like very largely different, which is why I think that the left is completely and utterly quarantined away from the Democratic Party. They can have seats, they can be a part of it, but they're never going to go towards leadership because that would threaten the bottom line. And that's one of the reasons why I think the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are both going to go through their own civil war in the very near future. And I think it's going to be wild how it shakes out.
I'm not quite following exactly how that looks, where Mamdani starts rolling out this program and that program, and national Democrats, elected Democrats in any other states or districts look at it and are somehow opposed to it. My feeling about these Democrats, are that they see government as a tool for good, and they are doing the best they can to pass policies that will benefit people and protect people and do what's in the public's interest. Mm-hmm. And I've seen, Democrats of the past do just that. There's always some number that we don't have enough to get a public option because of what's his name from Connecticut. Aberman. But it wasn't like Obama didn't try that. He did try that. And I could talk about things like universal pre-K in New York City. National Democrats want that. I could talk about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was an amazing answer and reaction to the financial crisis, the global financial crisis. So I feel like Democrats have been working, and certainly progressive Democrats in the House especially, and have passed a lot of legislation that would benefit the American people in a huge way. And I'm just not sure what policies specifically you see Mamdani or other Democrats, progressive Democrats proposing that you think can't pass muster with the larger caucus.
Redistribution of wealth. And one of the reasons, okay, so for instance, what's that?
That's a tax policy.
It is a tax policy, but it goes further than that, because the actual situation that we've arrived at, the Democratic Party has become a neoliberal and essentially conservative party. Like, basically what the offering has been is we will protect what remains of the progress of the 20th century, as opposed to some sort of broad kind of promise to expand it. You bring up, and I think that you are accurate in that the Democratic Party at least is able to say that they want to do things while maintaining a pragmatic stance, which, by the way, is tied to their corporate donors. Like, it's no coincidence that Schumer and Pelosi have been in charge of this party for the longest time. And it's because that they have the closest connection to the corporate donors who make sure that the coffers get continually filled. Then on top of it, you have an entire rank and file strategist and consultant class who, Pete, every 2 to 4 years, they'll go work on a campaign. But where are they working between those campaigns?
No doubt.
They're going to go work for Uber. They're going to work for Facebook. They're going to work for all the corporations who are giving the money. So they're actually making more money, the strategists and consultants, from those corporations than they are from their work with the Democratic Party. And in essence, and this is actually where I think shit has gotten backwards, it used to be that lobbyists would come in and actually work with politicians to try and sort of shift things. We now have a consultant class that is actually going in, running campaigns, establishing the agenda, and blaming the quote-unquote groups, which are people of color, labor unions, vulnerable people who are now under the boot of fascism. They're saying that they're the problem. They're getting in the way. They need to moderate, become more like the Republican Party. And in fact, what they're doing, they're actually being employed by the corporations as opposed to the party, and it goes back and forth.
I think there's a lot of that is true, but it's still a generalization where I want to get more specific and say one of the most important things I think to talk about with any of this is our campaign finance laws. And I firmly believe that Democrats absolutely believe in and advocate for all kinds of obviously transparency, but laws that would prevent wealthy interests in individuals from donating to campaigns. I covered this. I saw the Supreme Court decide on Citizens United. I saw Democrats in the Senate as a reaction say, well, at least we can pass something called the Disclose Act, but the filibuster, they couldn't do it, but they tried, which would simply at least give you some transparency around that dark money. Democrats, it's in their interest to do this because they could never compete in the past, especially with the money interests on the right. But just starting with campaign finance, I've always seen Democrats as the good guys on that and fighting for it. And losing the Supreme Court in a major case that changed the game, and we've been losing in a big way ever since. Starting there.
Yeah, I think Citizens United was the evolution of a problem that had been growing for a very long time, particularly starting in the 1980s when the Democratic Party looked at Ronald Reagan's reelection and said, we're never going to win another reelection, or we're never going to win another election unless we move more towards the center. And so when that happened, like we started to have this duopolistic environment in which the Democratic Party, their traditional base were labor unions, women, people of color, working people. And they moved away from that and they got much more cozier with corporations. And I do want to say, the framing that you're giving is correct, but I also want to highlight a couple of things. Why is it that they don't get things done? Well, there was one senator from Connecticut who didn't want to do it. Oh, Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin and the filibuster and the Supreme Court. It's always within these parameters, which were designed in the first place to protect and promote the interest of the moneyed class.
But that's not Democrats, but that's the truth. It's not Democrats' fault. The country is overwhelmingly agreed with Democrats' campaigns on this, overwhelmingly in polling, and they tried to get it done, but the filibuster matters. It's not like that you act like that's a small thing. It's why it didn't happen.
The filibuster matters? It doesn't matter. The Republican Party was going to get rid of it just a month ago.
That Democrats should have gotten rid of the filibuster to pass these things.
I agree. And so here's what I think has actually been revealed over the past decade. And I think, going back to Trump, I think Trump has done us a lot of favors, to be honest. I think, one, he has shown the hollowness of wealth. He has shown the hollowness of narcissistic striving. I'm so grateful that him and Elon Musk have shown us exactly how miserable these people are. Like just how unhappy they are. Like what happens if you dedicate your life to that? Yeah. But I think he's also shown us something else, which is that all of these guardrails that have been in place for years have been invisible and fictional. And I think quite frankly, and I'll go ahead and lay my cards on the table, I think that neoliberal globalism needs to be destroyed. I think it is one of the most damaging things that's ever happened. When he went into the tariffs, and I think the tariffs were an absolutely disastrous idea, but what he showed is that a lot of these things that we take for granted and we say, well, we can't do anything about these things. You can do something about them. You actually can move beyond them. And I think that liberals particularly get very caught in rule following in that regard. And it just so happens that the rules have been framed in such a way, and from the very beginning, from the beginning of this country, they've been framed in such a way as to quell small d democratic movement. And I think that is one of the things we should be thankful for, is to see that these things are vulnerable and can be changed.
No doubt about it. And listen, you'll get no disagreement from me on destroying neoliberal capitalism. But I'm living in a world where Mamdani is setting up the Democrats to follow him and Bernie Sanders and others who have similar beliefs about what, some people might call an FDR Democrat or, the Scandinavians' policies. And I believe that's incremental a positive change, especially for marginalized people, much less the rest of us. And so we're a long way from destroying neoliberal capitalism, but we're not that far away from universal pre-K in certain states and certain districts. And I think those policies are obviously only proposed and passed and advocated for by Democrats and those of us who elect them.
I think what Mamdani is showing us, and by the way, on the subject of Mamdani or Bernie Sanders, I think that we forget that Bernie Sanders was an outsider with the Democratic Party, and when he ran in 2016 and 2020, and by the way, we don't need to relitigate those elections, but the Democratic Party treated him the same way that white blood cells treat disease. They immediately mobilized everything that they could possibly do. In 2016, they mobilized around every sort of weakness that he had in his campaign in order to go after him. We saw the institution start to move towards Hillary Clinton in order to try and move the election. In 2020, literally Barack Obama had to call in every other contender and say, you're getting out of the race and we're getting behind Joe Biden. And we don't need to relitigate all of that. But the point is, there's a reason why Mamdani was not endorsed by the rank and file leaders of the Democratic Party. And what has been exposed is something that you just brought up that I think is really important. In the research that I do and the work that I do, what I keep noticing is there's a shadow consensus in this country, which is in many of the issues that are the most divisive, right? Those flashpoints, those real big battles. There is a consensus between 60 and 80% of the people in this country.
Yeah.
If you actually look at these issues, 60 to 80% of all people are agreed. And what do they want? Whether they're in MAGA, whether they're a Democrat, whatever it is, they see that there's a divide between the wealthy and the rest of us. They see that we should have more rights and more protections and more liberties. When you come down to that, we do not have a political system that reflects that. That's the issue here. And so I think what you said about Mamdani showing the way, I don't think that the rank and file of the Democratic Party is simply going to say, okay, we're to the left now. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars creating one plan after another to move the Democratic Party more and more towards the center, which is just screaming to the right. And so I think over the next few years, both of the parties are going to have internal battles over what the futures of the parties are going to be.
I feel like I'm seeing that, just to provide some nuance. I think I'm seeing that on some issues, and I think I'm seeing the other direction on other issues. I think sometimes we get caught up on framing something as moderate or center or left, and we can talk about it. I love this, but I do have to ask you before you go about a couple of other specific things that I want to get to. I mean, we can talk about this for a long time, and we absolutely should, and I'd love to bring more people into this conversation, including some elected Democrats maybe at any level of government, by the way. That's a really interesting perspective to get somebody who's a state assemblyman, a senator.
Good luck making that happen. They'll have me in their strategy meetings, but they won't go on camera with me, so.
Well, we'll sneak in. We'll be like, oh, joining us now, a homeless-looking person who's much smarter than he looks.
How dare you?
You do look with the Carhartt hat. A lot of people are saying in the chat / nobody but me that you look unhoused.
How dare you?
You look like an unhoused frontman for an aging punk band.
You know what? That is both one of the most insulting and sweetest things I've ever heard.
Well, you got a handsome face. What are you going to do? But now the shirt, the jacket, Sexton, that your name is on it. Did a listener make that for you? It looks like a listener made.
This isn't my old Lowe's work jacket.
Lowe's, the
hardware store, when I worked in the lumber yard at Lowe's.
You worked in the lumber yard at Lowe's.
One of the most miserable jobs that I've ever.
Why was it so miserable? I think that looks fun, and I'm not joking.
Have you ever filled a contractor's order on like a busy Friday?
Cutting stuff.
Not just cutting stuff. The cutting stuff is fine. It's the screws. It's the washers.
Oh, the hardware that they require.
Oh my God! If you have to fill a contractor's order, oh my God, you have no idea how many screws, how many washers, how many nails. Oh, it's awful.
All right, 2 comments from the live chat. Benny says Jared looks like he just got off his shift at the oil change place, which I think is good. And Tina's coming to your defense. She's outraged that any of us would make fun of you. Jared absolutely does not. He's just cool enough to pull off this look. Okay. If you're not watching, you're missing out. It's on YouTube and Substack. Final question about you take a really good examination at the right as well. We mostly talking about Democrats, left, the future of the party, et cetera, Mamdani, his significance. But what about Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson and the rest? Marjorie Taylor Greene leaving yesterday. Alex Jones said, I might leave. I might have to abandon Trump. And this Fuentes, I'm calling it the hoods off movement. I don't know why that's not catching on.
First of all, I watch Alex Jones pretty much every day for research purposes. And I mean, that man, his mood, I think we're done. I think it's over. I think the human race is done. We've got him on the run, folks. The deep state's on the run. It's every single day.
Everything's a demon.
Everything's a demon. God woke me up the other night, told me what time it was. I'm a prophet.
Oh, you texted a lot.
Yeah, he's not well. No, I think what's actually happening there, and this is, I think, the serious aspect, I think what we're watching within MAGA is a schism between the different groups that have made it up. Everybody wants to believe it's one big homogenized group, but it was actually all built under a lie that was trying to be all things to everybody within that sphere. And I think by creating white nationalist, neo-Nazi, crypto-fascist sort of like currents, these people are looking for something more real, because Donald Trump is instinctually a fascist, but he also has he's all over the place. He's going to bring in more immigrants, for his wealthy benefactors. I think that unless we address the material conditions that allowed MAGA to rise up in the first place, we're going to see the Republican Party become more and more overtly fascist and Nazistic.
They're there. I don't know what else it looks, how much it changes. Do you watch I watched that Nick Fuentes Tucker Carlson interview.
Me too. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think interesting is a way to put it.
Some listeners were getting upset with me because I was talking about how charismatic and likable Nick Fuentes is. And they're like, you're saying it a little bit too much. I'm like, I think it's good in a way that a guy is so emboldened with his horrible beliefs, and that he's splitting the party. It's hoods off. Like, who are you going to be with? I wish he didn't exist. I wish he wasn't so effective. I wish he cared more what people thought about him. Or money maybe, because he keeps getting deplatformed. But he's got a secret sauce that is working. It's radicalizing all kinds of people. He's a very weird dude, and it's effective.
I mean, I think he has all the likability of Ebola, but I think
it's not like I think
what he does, and I think this is the really fascinating. The fascinating aspect, and by the way, Tucker Carlson, people like him have followed this thing, which is it is refreshing for people on the right to hear actual criticism of Donald Trump. Like it allows them to sort of give up a little bit of the cognitive dissonance, right? They're like, yeah, actually, this isn't real, and I want something different. And I think that Fuentes is one of the ultimate sort of capitalists in this regard, because he recognized this lane before others did. And then the Gaza situation allowed people to start having a legitimate criticism of Israel, which then, of course, dovetailed into the existing anti-Semitism of Nazism and fascism. And I think it's taken off in that direction. And I think the future of the Republican Party is towards fascism, more and more overt, and crypto-Nazism. But we can stop them. And we have to address the things that have allowed this to happen, but they're very dangerous people.
And I just want to be clear, and I've seen in the chat, Ben says, Fuentes is bottom 3 of people's voices I can't stand, with Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin. What I'm saying, I should have been more clear. When I say that somebody is likable, it does not mean that I like them.
Well, it's also, you've spent years listening to Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin.
I spent years as a stand-up comedian and then on the radio wanting people to like me. But what I do to be likable is to be self-deprecating and be like, I don't know what to tell you what to think about this thing. That's why I have this guy on. Like, my whole thing, the reason I hated Levin and all those guys is because they were all acted like they were so smart about everything, and nobody is. And I was doing the opposite of that. And that is likable. That's why I like the people who I like, because they're that way too. That's why I don't like certain progressive voices. Like, I don't like Rachel Maddow's delivery necessarily. You know, like, there's certain things I don't like, even though I might agree with them. It's a likability thing, and it matters. And it goes back to our original point. It's personality, not politics. Whether it's media or elections, your personality matters way more than I wish it did, but it does.
And I think, to go with what you're saying, I think that we're also talking about what is happening after this era of artificiality, right? Which is, and I say this all the time when I'm in strategy meetings with Democrats, I'm like, you have to stop getting briefed on what you're going to say. Just go out and talk to people. Like that big, it's just awful listening to a rank and file Democrat talk because they're being so careful about this. It's the equivalent. I always tell people, when I watched the new Star Wars movies, I could feel the rooms full of people that were writing it together. But when it comes to Fuentes, he's able to go out and just be like, yeah, I'm into Nazis. What are you going to do about it? Which Mamdani is like, no, this is what I'm doing. I'm being authentic. So people are now looking for people who don't feel as polished or they don't feel as trained.
There are a few people who I find to be as effective as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I'll tell you why. She does the exact thing that you just said they should do. This woman goes on Instagram live alone, and she just talks and knits, and she makes so much fucking sense. And she's so easy to understand. And I fully believe that her heart is behind what she's saying, and she's spilling tea, and she's being a person of her age, but like a brilliant. And so she's not being coached. I'm sure she's seeing data. I'm sure she's being coached to a certain extent. But when she goes on those Instagram lives, and when anybody else does that as well, and you can tell they're just there with us to a certain extent. That's what Trump did through messages on Twitter. He spoke directly to his audience. She's so much better at it than I think anybody. And I could think of a few others, but what do you think?
It goes back to what I was saying earlier about the administrators. It's like being in the meeting with a manager or a boss. You know that they're trying to get you to do something.
Yeah.
It's the difference between that and hanging out with a coworker or a colleague who is being their true selves. The problem at this point is the Democratic Party has become the good manager. I'm really sorry that this is happening. I'm hoping next year things will be better. Maybe the coffee maker will come back to the break room. I'm really hoping. By the way, if you guys are hungry, I've got some pizzas that I brought in. You can have a couple of slices. Leave it down to 2 to 3 a piece. We want to make sure everybody gets some. It is the difference between the authenticity of believing that a person is showing up authentically. That's the difference.
Very well said. All right. Well, listen. I hope that you're going to spend time with people that you like, maybe, or even love.
Yeah, I am myself.
You're alone on Thanksgiving?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm trying to be profound.
You're enough.
I'm enough. And you know what? You know what, Pete? You know what, buddy?
What? You're about to say I am too.
You're enough. You couldn't even let me say it. You couldn't even let me say it. No, you couldn't even let me say it.
Well, I was just about to contradict you. I actually don't think you are enough.
Oh. You couldn't even say it. Look at that defense mechanism. Look at that comedian. He couldn't even let it happen.
I love that phrase. I am enough is a wonderful phrase. I use it a lot. I go to it quite a bit. And I glitched. I've also said it to other people, and it makes people feel good, that phrase. It's a reminder. Like, God, I'm trying to do everything. I'm trying to please everybody. I'm trying to, no, you're doing enough.
You looked him deep in the eye with those baby blues, and you said, you're enough. Yeah. And then you made a fart noise to diffuse the tension.
Oh, I didn't. I would not do that. I kissed him right in the mouth. Complete stranger. Guy just put on my tires. Nice guy, though. Soft skin.
Salt of the earth.
He had your jacket. Jared Yates, Sexton, everybody. Thank you for watching live. All your comments. Go follow Jared if you're not already. I'm sure if you're watching me here, you're already a subscriber to his over on Substack or Patreon, the Muck Rake podcast. I don't know what's wrong now.
The Muck Rack Pusscast.
The Muck Rack Pusscast is a news show.
The Muck Rack Pusscast.
Can't wait. Doing in a beaver dam in Wisconsin. It's just him.
This week we're going to talk about garbage pail kids on the Muck Rack Pusscast.
Oh, well done. Very well done. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you. Happy holidays. And all right, there he goes. Jared Yates Sexton. I hope that you liked that. And that is all I've got for you this week. I hope you liked everything that I put out, that I'm putting out. If you do, you can always pay more. You're getting more. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Either way, very happy to have you in my world, in my universe. Press and play on the podcast. Tell people about it. Subscribe on all the things, Substack and YouTube and all the rest. And I will talk to you Monday right here. Thank you very much, folks. Bye-bye. Drive safe. Be good. Tell everybody that you love them. If you do, and if you don't, you don't have to. Okay, bye-bye.
Oh, you better stand up. When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up off of your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. You got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. And even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all they had to for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change would begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says